You felt it, haven't you? The heavy silence that surrounds you like a suffocating fog, the kind that whispers, "You don't matter, you don't belong, you're just a shadow, a whisper in a world that demands a roar." They tried to silence you. They thought they could bury your voice, trap it beneath layers of doubt, fear, and expectations, as if your very existence wasn't worth hearing. They built walls around you, not just of brick and mortar, but of words and whispers. Every time you spoke up, they shut you down, told you that your thoughts, your dreams, your desires didn't belong. How many times did you bite your tongue, hold your breath, and swallow your truth just to fit into a mold that wasn't yours? How many nights did you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the world would ever hear you, or if you'd forever remain a forgotten echo? The darkness you've been trapped in, it's thick, isn't it? The kind of darkness that doesn't just hide your path, but makes you question if there was ever a light to begin with. It's the kind that wraps itself around your heart, weighs down your spirit and tells you, stay silent, stay small, don't stand out, don't make a sound. They've used every tactic they could, shame, manipulation, fear, to drown your voice, to twist your mind, to make you feel invisible. But I see you. I see the weight you've carried, the unspoken words that have built up like a dam waiting to break. You've been told to stay quiet, stay compliant, stay in your place, but that place has never felt like home. You've been in the shadows for too long. But here's the thing about silence. It's temporary. Silence is not your destiny. You may have been pushed down, suffocated by the weight of other people's expectations. But your voice, it's not gone. It's still there, deep within you, coiled and ready. You might not see it yet, you might not feel it, but your voice has been waiting for the moment when the walls around you crumble, waiting for the moment when you remember who you are, when you remember that you are the one who gets to decide when your voice is heard. This is not the end of your story. No, this is just the beginning of the storm that will shake the earth beneath your feet. The silence that has held you captive, it's about to break. You're not meant to stay hidden in the dark, alone with your thoughts. You were born to speak, to shout, to let your voice be heard over the noise of the world. You've been through the storm, yes, but the clouds are starting to part. The wind that once pushed against you is now a gust that will carry you forward. And when that voice of yours erupts, when it rises like a tidal wave, you will not be stopped. The world will hear you. The storm you've been holding inside will tear through every barrier, every doubt, and you will speak louder than ever before. The silence, it's not permanent, not for you. Your voice is coming, and when it does, everything will change. It starts small, doesn't it? The first time they told you to be quiet, to just listen, to stop speaking out. It felt like a small thing then, just a simple request, an innocuous suggestion. But over time, it began to feel heavier, as if every word you kept inside was another stone added to a pile you could no longer carry. And the silence grew louder. The weight of it pressed against your chest, wrapped around your throat, until it became impossible to breathe. You began to question yourself, doubt every thought, every action. It wasn't just the outside world telling you to be silent anymore. It was you, too. Their words became your own. The weight of silence isn't just in the absence of sound. It's in the constant noise that fills your mind when you're alone with your thoughts. It's the echo of every moment you held back, every truth you swallowed, every dream you hid. You are trapped in a cage of your own making, but it's not a cage you built. It's one that was built for you. It's the cage of expectations, expectations placed on you by others, by society, by your own insecurities. Every time you tried to break free, you were reminded of your place. Every time you thought about speaking your truth, the fear held you back. What if they laughed? What if they judged you? What if they rejected you? The fear of being misunderstood, of being silenced again, became louder than your own voice. And it wasn't just fear, was it? It was doubt. Doubt planted by others who thought they knew better, who saw your potential, but believed it was their job to control it. The ones who told you to follow their rules, to stay in line, to fit into the mold they'd created for you. They told you to be less, to shrink down, to make yourself small so that they could feel bigger. They told you that your dreams were too big, too bold, too much for the world to handle. And so you held back. You put your aspirations on hold, buried them deep inside, and learned to keep your voice low, to keep your thoughts hidden. You let them build their walls around you, convinced that this was just how it had to be. And that's where the isolation crept in, wasn't it? The loneliness of being unheard, of having a voice that no one cared to listen to. It's the silence in a crowded room, the feeling of being surrounded by people but knowing that you're invisible. It's the isolation that comes from being trapped in your own thoughts, afraid to speak because you fear rejection. It's the fear of being judged, of being ridiculed, of being silenced again. You've spent so much time hiding behind the walls others built for you that you've forgotten what it feels like to stand tall, to speak your truth, to be heard. You've learned to live in the shadows, to accept the quiet, to believe that silence is safer than standing out. But let me tell you something, silence isn't safety. It's suffocation. It's a slow death, one moment at a time. And the more you accept it, the more it takes from you. It takes your confidence, your sense of self-worth, your ability to trust your own voice. And when that happens, when you allow others to control your narrative, you lose yourself. You start to believe that you don't matter, that your thoughts don't count, that your dreams are too much. You become nothing more than a ghost, walking through life, unnoticed, unheard, untouchable. And that, my friend, is the real tragedy. But you're not alone in this struggle. Every single person who has ever been silenced, by society, by family, by friends, by the harshness of the world, has felt this same weight. You are not the only one who has carried this burden. You are not the only one who has walked through the fire of doubt, who has been told to be less than they are. This struggle, this pain, this isolation, it's not unique to you. It's a story shared by countless others, and that's why you must overcome it. Because the moment you realize that you are not alone, that your pain is not yours to carry forever, is the moment you start to break free. You see, this struggle, it's not just about surviving. It's about reclaiming what was taken from you. It's about taking back your voice, your power, your place in this world. The people who tried to control you, the ones who tried to break you down, they didn't understand your strength. They didn't see the fire inside you. They thought they could crush you, silence you, make you fade into the background. But they were wrong. They underestimated you. And now you will show them that no amount of silence can ever diminish the power of your voice. The weight they placed on you, it's nothing compared to the strength you hold within. And one day, they will see it. They will hear it. They will know that they couldn't silence you because your voice is louder than their fear. This is the truth you must remember. You are not broken. You are not small. You are not a victim. You are a force waiting to be unleashed. And the world, oh, the world is about to hear you roar. There's a villain in your story, one that has been lurking in the shadows, quietly whispering in your ear, feeding off your insecurities, your fears, your doubts. It's the fear that creeps into your chest every time you stand up to speak. The doubt that paralyzes you in moments of opportunity. The toxic voices that tell you that you'll never be enough. And make no mistake, this villain is not always external. Sometimes it wears the faces of the people around you. The ones who told you to play it safe. The ones who laughed at your dreams. The ones who made you feel small, insignificant, invisible. They are the ones who cast shadows on your light. The ones who told you to keep your voice down, to blend in, to stop being so much. But more often than not, the villain is within you. It is the darkness inside your mind, the doubts and fears you carry, the self-criticism that eats at your soul every time you try to rise. They made you feel small. They made you believe that your dreams weren't worth chasing, that your voice wasn't worth hearing. They told you that you weren't strong enough, smart enough, pretty enough, and slowly, like a poison, they sank into your veins until you began to believe it too. The world is full of these villains, people who thrive on your fragility, who find comfort in your silence, who get power from watching you shrink. But those villains, they don't belong in your story anymore. They operate in the shadows, these villains. They feed on your fears, they manipulate your doubts, and they grow stronger every time you let them. They don't attack you directly, oh no. Instead, they whisper in your ear, planting seeds of insecurity and feeding your mind with lies. They don't just tell you that you're not good enough, they tell you that you'll never be good enough. They don't just try to silence you, they try to convince you that silence is your only option. And they don't stop, they persist. They whisper when you wake up, when you go to sleep, when you look in the mirror. Every time you stand up, they tell you to sit back down. Every time you try to speak, they shove their hands over your mouth. They tell you that you're not worth the fight. And it's dark, isn't it? The way they make you feel, like you're drowning in an ocean of your own doubt, like you're trapped in quicksand, sinking deeper with every movement. It's the weight of every no you've ever heard, every rejection, every time someone told you to stop, to be quiet, to get in line. It's the suffocating darkness of feeling like you're fighting a battle alone, surrounded by an enemy that doesn't sleep, doesn't tire, and doesn't show its face. The villain is everywhere. It's in the people who reject you. It's in the voices that mock your dreams. It's in your own reflection, reminding you that you're not enough, that you'll never be enough, that you should just give up. But this villain, it's not invincible. Oh no, it has no real power. Not when you know its name, not when you understand that it is nothing more than a figment of your fears. It thrives in the dark, but once you shine a light on it, it shrinks. The villain is nothing more than the stories you've been told about who you are. It's nothing more than the lies you've allowed to take root in your mind. It's the version of you that you've been convinced to believe in. Fragile, weak, small. But that version of you, it was never the real you. It's the mask the villain made you wear. Now it's time to tear it off. It's time to understand that this villain, this fear, this doubt, it doesn't control you unless you let it. The moment you face it, the moment you stand up to it, it begins to lose its power. This villain, no matter how strong it seems, is not permanent. It can be defeated. It can be broken. And you, yes, you are the one who will break it. The villain wants you to think it's bigger than it is. It wants you to think it's unbeatable. It wants you to think that you'll never overcome it. But you've got something stronger than any villain could ever possess. Yourself. You've got the power to change your story, to rewrite it, to make this villain nothing more than a memory, a distant shadow in the rearview mirror. You've got the strength to face it head-on and turn the tables. So now ask yourself, what has this villain taken from you? How many dreams has it stolen? How many opportunities has it buried under the weight of your fear? How many times has it told you that you couldn't, and you believed it? What would it feel like to take it all back, to rise above this villain, to shatter the chains it has wrapped around you, and to finally stand tall? The answer is clear. It's time to defeat this villain. It doesn't matter how strong it seems. It doesn't matter how loud it whispers. It doesn't matter how dark it gets, because the moment you recognize it for what it is, just a shadow, a whisper, a lie, the moment you stop running from it is the moment it loses its grip on you forever. The villain isn't real. You are, and that's the truth you must carry with you. You've been holding it in, haven't you? All this time. The pain, the frustration, the anger. You've been biting your tongue, swallowing your words, pushing your truth deeper and deeper into your soul. Every day, it gets harder. The pressure builds, slowly at first, but then it begins to mount. It's subtle, just a shift in the air, a whisper in the back of your mind telling you that something's about to give, something is about to break. You've tried to stay calm. You've tried to be patient. You've told yourself that everything will be okay. You've convinced yourself that silence is easier, that keeping it in will make it go away. But it doesn't. It never does. It just festers. It eats away at you like a slow poison. It's the silence of being unheard, the silence of watching your dreams drown while you sit silently by, paralyzed by fear. It's the silence that tells you that you're too small to speak, too insignificant to matter. But you can't hold it in forever, can you? The pressure builds, the tightness in your chest, the heat rising in your throat. It's too much now. You've been suffocating for too long. The floodgates are about to open, and there's nothing that can stop it. You've been patient, yes, but patience has its limits, and now you're at that breaking point, the moment when all the frustration, all the pain, all the years of silence come rushing to the surface. Something inside you snaps, the dam breaks, and in that instant, everything changes. The floodgates open, and the scream that's been trapped inside you bursts out, raw and unfiltered. It's a scream of rage, of fear, of relief. It's the scream of a person who has been carrying too much for too long. And for the first time, in what feels like forever, you can breathe. You can finally be heard. This is the moment you've been waiting for. The moment when the silence is shattered. The moment when you stop hiding, stop shrinking, stop pretending to be something you're not. The moment when you realize that you've been holding back the most powerful part of yourself, the part that is tired of being silenced, the part that is ready to break free. And you scream. You scream because you're done. You're done with the silence. You're done with the fear. You're done with letting others define you. The walls you've been trapped behind, the ones built by doubt, by fear, by the lies you've told yourself, they begin to crumble. And in the wake of your scream, there's a new sound. It's the sound of freedom. It's the sound of your voice, finally, speaking. But let's be clear. This moment of breaking, it's not the end. It's the beginning. It's the start of your transformation. It's not about what's broken. It's about what's about to be rebuilt. You've spent so long hiding, so long keeping your truth locked away. And now you've released it. You've let the floodgates open, and you can't go back. You can't pretend to be small anymore. You can't be silenced. Because once you've screamed, once you've released everything that's been buried inside, there's no going back to the silence. The release of that scream is just the first step in a new journey. It's the moment you stop being the victim of your own story. It's the moment you stop letting fear control you. You've broken free from the chains that held you, and now it's time to rise. It's time to turn your pain into power, your frustration into fuel, your silence into strength. You might think that breaking down means you've lost control, but in reality, it's the opposite. This is where control begins. This is where you take back your narrative. The scream isn't weakness, it's courage. It's the courage to say, I've had enough, to stand up and say, I won't be silenced anymore. It's the courage to show the world who you really are. And when that happens, the world won't know what hit it. You're no longer the person who hides in the shadows. You're the one who steps into the light, with all the fire, all the fury, all the power you've been hiding. This breaking point, it's the spark, the beginning of a flame that will burn brighter than anything you've ever known. The world will try to keep you quiet. It will try to silence you. But now you know something it doesn't. You know the strength that comes from breaking. You know that in the breaking, there's a remaking. And this remaking, this transformation. It's unstoppable. It's you, reborn, ready to scream your truth to the world, and no one will ever be able to silence you again. There's a moment when the fog lifts. It's subtle at first, almost imperceptible, like the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon, pushing back the darkness that has surrounded you for so long. But then slowly, the world begins to take shape again. The weight that you've been carrying, the heaviness in your heart, the suffocating silence you've lived under. It starts to crack, and for the first time in a long time, you feel something you thought was lost forever. Hope. This isn't just any hope. This is the hope of someone who has seen the depths of despair and decided that they will no longer live in the shadows. This is the awakening of a power you never realized you had, but always, deep down, you knew was there. You see, in the darkest moments when you felt like there was no way out, you were being prepared. You were being shaped. Your struggles, your pain, your silence, they weren't weaknesses. They were the furnace that forged you. Every moment of pain was a lesson. Every tear was a seed being planted. And now it's time for that seed to sprout. A seed doesn't grow in silence. It doesn't grow in comfort, number. It grows in the depths of the earth, in the darkest places, pushing its way through the dirt, the rocks, the weight of the world. It grows when it feels like it has no choice but to rise. And in this moment, you are that seed. You've been buried. You've been trapped under the weight of everything life has thrown at you. But now, there's a change. You feel it deep within you. The pressure is no longer crushing you. It's pushing you forward. You're no longer being smothered by the world. You're breaking free. And just like that seed, you are pushing through the soil. You are reaching for the sun. You are growing. It's powerful, the feeling of growth. It's like a storm breaking the cloud, the sun pouring through the cracks, the rain finally stopping. Everything around you comes into focus. The world shifts from chaos to clarity. The darkness no longer feels like a prison. It feels like the ground from which you will rise. The clouds are parting, and in that moment, you can see it all. Your purpose. This is when it hits you. You've always had control over your destiny. You've always had the power to change the course of your life. You just needed to see it. You just needed to realize that the life you've been living, full of fear, of doubt, of silence, wasn't the only option. It was never the only option. You're no longer a victim to your circumstances. You're no longer defined by the labels they tried to put on you. You're no longer the person they tried to make you believe you were. You are not more than the pain, more than the struggle. You are now stronger than you ever imagined. And the best part, you are in full control now. You are the one who decides. You are the one who chooses the direction of your life. You are the one who takes the wheel and drives toward the future you've always wanted. No one else. You. And with that realization, everything shifts. You feel it in your bones, in your soul. The empowerment doesn't come from the world outside of you. It comes from within. It's the power of choice, the power of your own voice, the power of your ability to create the life you want. You've awakened. You've realized your power. And now, there is nothing, no one, who can stand in your way. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable now appear insignificant. The doubts that used to haunt you now seem laughable. You know your worth. You know your strength. You know that you are a force to be reckoned with. You've been through the storm. You've felt the weight of the world on your shoulders. You've faced the darkness. And now, like a warrior stepping out into the light, you stand tall. You stand proud. You stand unshakable. This is not a small victory. This is everything. This is the moment you take back your life. This is the moment you take back your power. You are no longer a shadow. You are no longer someone who waits for permission. You are no longer silent. You have found your voice. And with it, you will change the world. This is just the beginning of your transformation. This is the beginning of the life you've always dreamed of, the life you were always meant to live, the life where you own your power, where you walk with purpose, where you rise above every fear, every doubt, every obstacle that comes your way. You've awoken, and now it's time to rise, to run, to live, to become everything you were always meant to be. Because you are no longer the person who sits in the shadows. You are the storm. You are the sun breaking through the clouds. You are the seed that has pushed through the soil and is ready to bloom. And nothing, not fear, not doubt, not anything, will ever silence you again. In the wake of your awakening, something powerful stirs within you. It's the stirring of something that's always been there, waiting. You know it now, with every fiber of your being. Your voice is your weapon. It is sharper than a blade, stronger than steel, and capable of cutting through the lies, the silence, and the fear that have held you back for so long. You feel it deep in your chest, a vibration, a hum, a growing intensity. Your voice is no longer a whisper, it is a roar. The first time you speak after this awakening, it's almost as if you've been holding your breath for years. But now, the air is fresh. The words are no longer caught in your throat. They flow freely, like a river bursting from a dam. You are no longer afraid. You are no longer concerned with how others will hear you, or whether they will silence you again. Your voice is not just an instrument of communication. It is your declaration. It is your battle cry. You speak not out of rage, but out of deep, unwavering self-worth. It's a quiet confidence, a certainty that what you have to say is worth hearing, no matter who is listening, no matter what they think. You speak because it's time. You speak because you are ready to claim your place in the world. You speak because you belong here, and you've known that all along. This moment is monumental. It's the moment when the words you speak no longer hold back the truth. They no longer hold back the pain. They no longer hold back your desires, your passions, your power. Your voice is like the crash of a tidal wave, sweeping everything in its path, unstoppable. It's the roar of a lion, shaking the earth beneath you, commanding attention. Your words cut through the silence, and with every syllable, you gain ground. Each time you speak, your voice grows louder, stronger, more assured. You are no longer afraid of the backlash, no longer afraid of the judgment. You no longer care whether others approve. You know who you are. You know that your truth is more important than their silence. And now, you speak without hesitation, without apology. You are unapologetically Yukburian, no longer bound by the constraints of others' expectations or the weight of their judgments. You speak with the power of someone who has fought their way through the dark, who has come out on the other side, and who is no longer willing to live in fear of being heard. You speak because you deserve to be heard. And when you speak, the world listens. It's not because your words are perfect or because they are polished. It's because they are real. They are raw. They come from the deepest part of you, the part that has been hidden for so long, the part that was silenced, the part that has now found its voice. The world may not always agree with you, but that's not the point. The point is that you are speaking. You will not be silenced anymore. You will not shrink back into the shadows. You will stand tall, with your voice as your armor, with your words as your sword. And if anyone tries to silence you again, you will fight back with the full force of your truth. They will not win this time. This is the moment you realize the power of your own voice. It's not just a tool for expressing thoughts or ideas. It's your weapon. It's the force that will carry you forward. It's the thing that will push you through every obstacle. It's the thing that will keep you unstoppable. Your voice is the sound of your liberation. It is the sound of your endless freedom. It's the sound of someone who has refused to stay silent, who has refused to live in fear, who has chosen to speak their truth no matter the consequences. This is your rebirth. And now, nothing, no one can ever make you feel small again, because you found your voice, and when you speak, the world will hear you. They will hear you roar, hear the crash of your words, hear the unstoppable force of your truth. Speak, speak loud, speak proud, speak with everything you've got, because this is the moment you reclaim your power. This is the moment you best reclaim your voice, and it will never be silenced again. Words alone cannot change the world. You can scream from the rooftops, you can write your truth, you can even shout at the top of your lungs, but it is your actions that will transform your life. This is the moment when you must realize the true power lies not in the words you speak, but in what you do next. Talk is easy, it's comfortable, it's safe, but action is the game changer. It's the thing that forces the world to take notice. It's the thing that takes your voice, your newfound power, and turns it into reality. You see, when you take action, you are no longer just talking about change. You are about becoming the change. Think of the greatest athletes, the ones who are legends. They didn't become great by simply talking about their dreams. They woke up every single day, pushing through pain, fatigue, and doubt, doing the work. Their words were powerful, but it was their actions that made them unstoppable. They took every obstacle in their way and turned it into a stepping stone. They didn't wait for permission to be great. They didn't wait for the world to recognize their potential. They acted, and in doing so, they turned their struggles into their greatest triumphs. Take Michael Jordan, for example. He was cut from his high school basketball team. He could have taken that rejection as the end of his story. He could have allowed it to silence him, to stop him in his tracks. But instead he took that pain and turned it into action. He poured every ounce of energy into his game, practiced relentlessly, and when his chance came, he seized it with both hands. And now, we all know his name. His words were few, but his actions unmatched. Or think of the countless entrepreneurs who have built empires from nothing. They started with nothing but a dream and an idea. But they didn't stop at dreaming. They didn't wait for the stars to align. They took action. Small, imperfect, messy action. They risked everything. They faced failure again and again. But each time, they stood back up, and they kept moving forward. Every action they took, no matter how small, built the foundation of their success. They didn't instead of just saying. The same can be true for you. You have the power to change your life. But it won't happen by simply hoping for it. It won't happen by talking about your goal. It will happen when you must take that first step, no matter how small. It will happen when you choose to act, even when it feels uncertain, even when it feels risky. The most powerful thing you can do today, in this very moment, is take action. That first step may not be huge. It might be something as simple as deciding to move forward, as small as opening a door that's been locked for too long. But it's that first step that sends the signal to the universe. I am no longer waiting. I am moving. I am doing. Think about how many times you've been afraid to take that first step. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown.